Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Janet. Today I'm going to discuss about a legendary fashion designer called Christian Dior, mostly known as Dior. It is a French fashion house. It mostly produces watches, clothes, and perfumes, and a variety of many products. Dior is a French name meaning golden. So let's stay tuned and let's get started. And please do not skip the ads. Thank you. Let's see.
Christian Dior lived a life full of unexpected changes, from extreme wealth and abundance to dire poverty and homelessness and back again. Are you interested to know how the unusual visionary managed to establish one of the most powerful brands on the planet? Then keep watching. Christian Dior was born on the 21st of January 1905 in Granville, a seaside town in the north of France. His family later moved to the bustling city of Paris, and this is where Christian would spend his youth. He was the second born of 5 children and born to Madeleine and Alexandra Dior. His father, Alexandra, was the owner of a highly successful fertilizer company. It was thanks to this that the Dior family lived a comfortable life. In his childhood, he was amused by anything that was sparkling, but he loved flowers and plants. He was also passionate about art and he hoped to be an architect. His father, however, had other plans for him. Alexandra didn't think his son would be able to make a living for himself as an artist, and instead he wanted him to become a diplomat. Although it didn't interest young Dior at all, he eventually kept to his father's wishes, and in 1925 he enrolled at the prestigious École des Sciences Politiques. He specialized in political science. This way, he would find work as a diplomat. Later on, after his graduation, um, in 1928, the 23 years old Dior found his way back to the creative world. He opened a small art gallery with his father's money, and in exchange for the financial support, his only demand was that the family name should not appear above the gallery or be used in connection with it. Happy to finally be able to get into art again, Christian quickly accepted, and in a short time, the gallery was opened. He sold arts by the likes of Pablo Picasso and Max Jacobs. But in 1931, the unimaginable happened. Christian's mother and elder brother passed away. And due to this loss, his father got depressed and lost control of the family business. Just 3 years after setting the place up, Christian was forced to close it again, and financial problems were looming. Christian was deeply affected by the loss of his mother and brother. Without financial support from his father, Christian Dior was forced to find creative ways to earn a living to make ends meet. He sold all the stocks of the gallery, but this wasn't enough. He lost his apartment and had to sleep off at his friend's floor. But his darkest days are yet to come. Due to his poor diet and bad living conditions, Christian contracted tuberculosis and spent a year in recovery. This was bad for him. When he healed, he found ways to make money. He started off by selling his fashion sketches. Later, he started selling sketches of art designs to newspapers. Dior clearly had a talent, and he was offered a job as a designer assistant with Swissborn. He worked with Robert Peugeot. He later said Robert taught him the virtues of simplicity, through which true elegance must come from. Working with Robert was Dior's first step towards a serious involvement in fashion, and it opened many doors for him. However, he would only get to explore them after a few years because now the Second World War began and Dior was called up for military service by the French army, and some sources say he would serve as an officer. He later opted out, returned to Paris, and began working in house couture for Lucien Lelong. Lucien was more a businessman than a designer, but he cleverly employed young talents to produce ideas which he then edited into a collection. Throughout the remaining years of the war, Lelong's design house dressed the women of both Nazis and French collaborators. Dior's ambition slowly began to sprout into his own ideas for business. At the end of the war, millionaire Marcel Boussac realized that he had factories standing idle to keep the machines running. He wanted to buy a new fashion house, and seeing Dior's potential, he invited him over. He offered him the opportunity to receive a defunct fashion house called Philippe Auguste. But Dior refused because by now, Christian was no longer interested in employment. He wanted to make a fresh start from his own name. Luckily for him, Boussac agreed. The millionaire handed him a large sum of money, and with this money, the 41-year-old Dior could now launch his true career. That same year, he opened up his own boutique, and the Christian Dior brand was born. Dior's father passed on in December of that year. In the following months, Christian began working harder than ever before. He had interacted with many designers who had instilled a unique eye for fashion in him, and his privileged early years truly shone through. After the war, Dior came up with a new idea. He brought a change to the normal dressing. He wanted to reintroduce femininity and focus on luxury. Spurred on by his inspiration, it took less than 3 months from the brand's creation to launch its first couture collection. The big flower lover that he was, he named the collection Corolla. And the pieces were truly cute at the time. Each dress had an average of 20 yards of fabric. The designs were evolutionary and the designs was a high success. However, not everyone was pleased and he received criticism from Coco Chanel. Coco was the patron saint of pants, and to her, Dior's pieces seemed to be stiff, too fussy, and most importantly, too hard to breathe in. She accused him of dragging women back to the 19th century, ideals of femininity, and she once stated, Dior doesn't dress women, she upholds them. In the US, some people agreed with Coco, and in 1947, when he had visited, he was welcomed with placards urging him to go home. Despite the backlash in the US, Dior persevered. He wanted to expand. 1 year after launching his collection, he opened a store in New York City. Dior understood that in order to continue his legacy, he needed to provide the entire fashion with experience. So like many other fashion houses, he began with creating a fragrance. He called it Miss Dior, and it served an ode to his sister Catherine. Years later, he also licensed the Dior name for other accessories. Now Dior lovers could fully capture the new look from head to toe by buying the clothes, the jewelry, and the fragrance. In the following years, the brand continued to flourish. Dior went on to dress the biggest stars at the time. And by the mid-1950s, House of Dior was a highly respected empire. It was also around this time that the new famous Yves Saint Laurent entered the picture. The fresh-faced 19-year-old initially started working as Dior's assistant, but it didn't take long for Dior to notice his potential and admire the young boy's eye for fashion, that he wanted him to be his successor when the time would come. Little did he know that the time would come sooner than expected. In 1957, Dior traveled to Italy on vacation in the town of Montecatini, but while there he suffered his third heart attack and died at the age of 52. The entire fashion world felt the loss deeply, and to keep the brand from veering, Yves was given the role of artistic director. The young talent kept Christian's legacy and vision alive by using the same fabrics and proportions, but he also introduced pieces that were lighter and easier to wear. People struggled to accept the new designer, and when he was absorbed in the French army in 1960, Dior's management didn't object him leaving. Following his departure, Marc Bohon took over in late 1960s. He instilled a more conservative style and brought designs to be similar to what Christian Dior had done. This gave it a more modern taste, and the collections were nice. They were hit. For over a decade, Marc continued to build the brand, making it more internationally successful than ever before. Stores started popping up in more cities like London and Hong Kong, and the Dior house was well accepted. It was catapulted to the top of the industry, but the late 1970s, Dior had created a worldwide brand recognition. Today, Dior is doing well. It recorded a revenue of 28.7 billion euros in the first half of 2021, and the brand can rightly be titled as the epitome of the fashion industry. This was the story of Christian Dior, the revolutionary visionary who tried for 4 decades to do what he loved. When his first collection finally launched, the whole world took note. And although he passed away over a half-century ago, his Dior legacy has continued to rule high seas of fashion ever since. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you've learned from it. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thanks a lot for joining me. Let's meet in the next video. Bye bye.